Good morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine
if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the picture. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence. Good day again. It is me, Carl Hendricks, your host on the Inside Show, the best show ever on podcast. Well, a warm welcome to each and everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I would love you, please, if you don't mind, just to subscribe and hit that bell, because every time when we online, you will know, and you're not going to miss a single thing. Today we have got a wonderful program, and it's going to help so many people. We've got a program today that's going to deal with depression is real and deliverance is possible. There are so many people out there that's really struggling with depression. And some of you would think it's only baby boomers that's struggling with depression, or some of you might think it is Generation X that's struggling with depression. But in the studio today, I also have a person who's a millennial who had to work through difficulties in life, and so many difficulties. You won't believe the testimony that's going to come from today. So if you know of anybody that's really struggling with depression and how to get out of it, or anybody that was previously on drugs or previously abused through one case or the other, today is your day. We're going to discuss these issues and we're going to find answers around it. And today I've got a wonderful lineup here for you today, and we're going to try to get to the root of everything. But I've got a beautiful young lady with me here in the studio, and I'm so glad for her to take the confidence out to come to the studio and to share a story, and not just in the studio. She also have a wonderful book out, and we will share shortly around this whole book. And I've got in the studio none less than a wonderful, beautiful, lovely young lady by the name of Theolyn Francis. How's that? So warm welcome to you. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Doctor.
Yes, great stuff. Just give us a little background about yourself and where you're from and so more before we get into the educational side.
So my name is Theolyn Francis. I hail from the beautiful town of El Dorado Park. I believe that it's the city or the township of gold. So yeah, I'm from El Dorado Park. I live with my mom and my dad and my son, Lilo. I've got a little boy who's not that little anymore. He's almost my size. We wear the same size shoes now, and he's 8 years old. So, so that's
you know,
me.
the last time I bumped into him, it was just before COVID. What did he eat to get so tall, within COVID? Also with me, thank you, Theolyn. Also with me here, I've got Roden Border. You know him very well. He's kind of gate crashing all my shows for me here. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Bura.
Great to be on the show, Doc.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to a very insightful show again today. What a topic are we addressing? Depression. And if I may, if I can just throw a statistic in here. You know that I'm the guy with all the facts.
You must come with facts here.
In South Africa, more than 17 million people in South Africa are dealing with some sort of depression or substance abuse, anxiety, bipolar.
17 million.
That is,
and you know what? We are sitting on 55 million people in South Africa, about 55 to 60 roughly. Yeah. And 17 million of them struggling with some form of depression.
That is, and that's the latest stat from the South African Depression and Anxiety Group as early as 2019.
Wow.
And they estimated that increased drastically due to COVID-19.
I can imagine, because we're also in the GBV month, and for all the causes getting out there. Man, I'm anxious to hear a little about this girl and her education. You're such a young and beautiful girl, and if I look at that picture there, man, it's like a model, I'm telling you. Tell me a little about your educational journey. What did you study and where are you now?
So I matriculated in 2009, and I was caught between what do I study. So because of the situation that I was faced with at the time, I made the decision to not go for law but to rather study psychology. Wow. And I graduated and I got my undergraduate degree in psychology. And then I went on to study my education degree. So I've got my psychology degree and my education degree, and I'm currently a teacher at the moment. Yeah, looking to study further.
You know, what grade are you teaching?
I'm teaching grade 5 now. Funny enough, I'm teaching Afrikaans history and geography. So,
Afrikaans, you know what I feel sometimes? Afrikaans history and geography is like if they don't like you at school as a teacher,
they
just,
give you that.
just take that subject, just get it. But you know what the interesting part is? I enjoy all those subjects. My scoring was always great with Afrikaans. My scoring was always great with geography. My scoring was always great with history up to now. That's why I'm doing the show. I love stories. History is about stories. It's about going back in the past and dig stuff out and applying to your life. Some people are negative towards history. I'm not.
I love it.
It's a beautiful subject. My wife, if I say history is beautiful, then she goes, how can history be nice? But for me, I can eat. I tell you stories, and I had one guy once here on the set, and I had to be very careful not to call him somebody back in the apartheid days because his first name sounds just like an apartheid name, and I almost connected him with that apartheid name. It's like I had to tell myself because of history. No, that's not his name. Just like as you need to think now. Because, So you're a school teacher now, and where's the school that you're teaching?
I teach at a primary school in the Brixton area. It's called Jamfushia. So there we have a lot of various groups of kids. So we have a lot of kids that come from the informal settlement close by, a lot of kids that have immigrated. Their parents have sought asylum in South Africa. So those are the students. It's a very Islamic population. It's very, how can I say, it's a lot of Islamic children and parents that are there at that school. So that's where I find myself now.
Great. You're lucky that you're teaching a younger group, because if you have to teach in high school, you would have problems. It's like they would think that you're a student. Yeah, it's like they think that you look like somebody's in grade 10 or something like that.
Yes, I've had that experience where I actually taught at a high school in Al Rado Park, and then there was these boys that were coming and hitting on me, and I'm like, I'm actually your teacher.
I'm your teacher.
So yeah.
I like that. So lovely. Well, you know what? I want to, on my show, we play a game. But this is literally because you studied psychology. All
it's
the
going
things
to be wise
here. It's a softball. So if you have stress, you can just press it, and then with your thumb lands, you just read a little. So I'm going to throw it at you, right?
Okay.
So and then where your thumb lands, you just read, and you just whatever it asks you, your answer. Right? Let's go. Yeah.
I feel the most stress when when I need to mark all my exam papers.
Then you're under
Then
stress.
I'm under stress.
We have deadlines there.
Yes.
Okay. Let me hear here, Mr. Bora. Let's see what's up here. Your thumb.
Share a coping skill you use today. My favorite coping skill is my cup of coffee. It just calms me down, allows me to get focused, and then I attack whatever I need to attack.
Did you see that advert? Did you see that advert of Kit Kat? It's an old advert. You must be Generation X to know it. It's like when you have a Kit Kat, you relax. It's like, I don't know what's the latest one. Maybe Cremora now, or something like that. But coffee is older. They always relate coffee with relax mode. Like if you have a cup of coffee, you can relax now. Well, thank you so much again. I've got a wonderful guest with me here on set here today on the Inside Show. A wonderful young lady here, and she's such a blessing. I know her. I interviewed her more than once already. And talk to me about your book, because you're so talented. And I guess what you're gonna do, you're gonna take that. Was it hard to start that book? That's where you need to start off. And then I want you to start to relate the story. You've got a story, and the reason why I want you to start with your private personal story that's so deep and so emotional, and this story is so moving. I can't believe. I must just be honest. I'm not sure if I would have been able to share that story, not even leave sharing it on live podcast. Never mind putting it down in a book. I'm not sure if I would have done that, but you know what? Through that, you're going to help so many other people out there that's really, really, really struggling. They're struggling with depression. They're struggling with drugs. They're struggling with abuse. They're struggling with it. And you're such a young child, and you went through all these things. It's admirable for you to take the set, and it doesn't mean that you're done with life, but at least for where you are, you man up. You really man up, and you are prepared to share your story with the world. So start anywhere. I think I know your story, but I think start where this whole thing started off. We are ready to listen. South Africa and the world is ready to hear your story.
So I'll start off when I actually wrote the book. So it was. So it was between 2015 and 2014, specifically 2015, we were actually in the prayer room. Mm-hmm. So we were in a prayer meeting that we had on a Wednesday evening, and I was praying, and the Holy Spirit laid it on my heart to write a book, and I was thinking, I can't do it. How can I write a book? And he then took me on this journey where I saw that I needed to write it, because I was introduced to so many young girls that was going through, that had went through rape, that had went through abuse. And it was like the Holy Spirit put this pressing on my heart that I need to write it in order to help them. And when I write it, I need to write it in such plain and simple English that a grade 5 learner can pick it up and read it and be inspired by it. And the contents that's in the book is basically about my journey. And at the age of 16, I was raped by my cousin. And that whole rape incident, it robbed me of who I was, because back then I was a young, bubbly little girl. Growing up, I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer, so I would train every day, and I would always mix with my fellow athletes, and I wasn't shy to walk around with my bathing suit when I was training with them. So it robbed me of that, where I didn't even want to walk around in a bathing suit anymore in front of men. I didn't like men. I was very depressed. I was suicidal. I was rebellious. So it robbed me of who I was. And because of that, I didn't know, because I was 16 at the time, I didn't have coping skills like knowing that you can take a cup of coffee or I just felt out of place. I felt like, how can this happen to me? Because at then also I wanted to save myself for marriage, because that is what my parents taught me. That was what they told me, that is what is expected of a young girl. And to have my cousin do that to me was like, it was really brutal. And I always walked around feeling like I had this board on my head saying like, help me. But in my actions, I tried to pretend like everything was okay. I had this imaginary board saying like, help me. But I kept quiet about the rape for exactly a year.
She was. And you walked all by yourself for that?
Yes. I think at that time I was still in denial. Because you hear about these things and you think that it will always happen. It happens to other people. It doesn't happen to me. So I was in that denial state, and I was also afraid because, my cousin, he's late now, but he was like twice my size. So there was that. We always had this hold of me, like, you're not gonna tell anyone. So I had that fear as well, and I didn't share it until it broke me down to such a point where exactly a year later, and it happened conveniently. Funny enough, it happened like in the December period, like now. Where a year later I then went to my aunt's house, and my family was there. They were jolly, they were happy to be around each other, and I was sitting in the bedroom, and I was laying on the bed, and I was like, I was so depressed, and I was so anxious also, because I knew that it was my anniversary, for lack of a better word, where this had happened to me, and I just wanted to be alone, because that's one of the side effects of depression. You exclude yourself from everyone else. When people laugh, you like wonder, but why are you laughing and I can't laugh? So you want to be alone and bury yourself in that sorrow that you find yourself in. And long story short, so my aunt came in, and she when she touched me to wake up, like I when I looked at her, I saw him. And it felt like all of that emotions was like, it felt almost like I was reliving, because it was her, but I saw his face. And that's when I just broke, and I told her, and she called my parents in, and I told them exactly what had happened. And the first thing when I told my father, because he's a judge, so he's in the legal field, the first thing was like, okay, let's go to court. And let's go report it and sort it out the legal route, because that's how his brain is wired. And I was like, no, I don't want to, because it's almost like you have to relive that moment again, because then you have to write down the statements, you have to go for medical examinations, you have to like testify and all of that. So I didn't want to, and I like shrugged it off again. And then, because now they knew, I then became angry. So it was no longer that denial phase was gone, and the angry phase stepped up.
There could be outbursts now.
Yes.
Because you had to kind of keep it to yourself.
Yes. So when I actually released and said, look, this is what happened to me, I became so angry, and I took that anger out on my parents, specifically my father, because in my mind it was like, I'm a little girl. Why weren't you there to protect me?
Sure.
And it was like, from your side of the family, so why weren't you there? It got so angry that I didn't even want to carry my family name anymore. I wanted to change my surname. I was really rebellious.
I'm telling you, I'm getting so emotional here. Maybe our producer need to bring me their tissues, because I always say I don't need no tissues on my set, but I tell you what, oh my word, it's like, you know why? Come and tell you why I'm getting emotional. I can place myself as a dad, and here you hear for the first time like your little girl at 16 was raped, and you didn't know about it, and she's walking for a year with this, and the pain and the severity that go with that. And then just when you think as a dad, okay, at least now we can do something, and then you flip the opposite.
Yes. That's literally what happened, because it was like, although I know now with hindsight, I knew that I was wrong, keeping quiet for so long, and then releasing that anger towards my dad. It was just, for me, it was in a sense where I blamed him, but I also could trust him. So he was the only person that I could unleash that anger on, knowing that he won't judge me for that anger, and he still loves me, because that's just who he is. So I could really vent and pour out that anger on him, not knowing that I'm also hurting him in the same time. But yeah, so when I told him, I was doing my matric year that year, where I decided, okay, now I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead with the court case. And that was hectic. So from that time, I had to they sent me to different psychologists and psychiatrists, because also with the rebellion, I also was very suicidal. So I remember, like, my father had a gun license, so he had a gun, and I would dig around and actually scratched in his safe, and I kept a few of his bullets. And because I was at that point where I really just wanted to commit suicide, and I would also take tablets, and I would like consume a lot of tablets at a time. So I was extremely suicidal. I was extremely rebellious, all at the same time, and then dealing with matric as well. I remember I only went to school for 3 months in my matric year, because every time I would have this breakdown, I would collapse, I would faint, I would have these suicidal episodes, to a point where the school actually advised my parents to let me deregister for the year and then come back the following year. And my mother was like, no, you're gonna go, because they never really wanted to see me as like a victim. Both my parents didn't want me to see me as be seen as this victim. They wanted me to still push on and to persevere despite what I was going through. And I'm actually thankful that they instilled that within me. So I did my matric year, and I still passed also, and I passed with the distinction. So they were telling me like, yeah, you're not stupid, you can do it. So I did that, and then we had the court case, and I lost the court case.
What?
So
After all that?
After all of
So this boy was there. It's something you want to ask?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about it. The fact that this is family. It was a cousin that was involved, right? And now the court case. And I mean, what was the reason why you lost the court case?
So I didn't have enough evidence, and the fact that I kept quiet for too long also counted against me. So for me, but I also felt a little bit of an injustice because the persecutor that I had didn't even know my name. So that morning I was like, how can you defend me? You know, when you don't even know me, you don't even know my name. How can you do that? So I felt robbed again.
And betrayed again.
And thinking also that at the back of my mind, I also had this like not I wouldn't say pride, but I had like this hope that thinking, okay, my dad's also a judge, so I have the upper hand. You know, he will guide me and he'll do. But then still to have that, like, okay, now I lost. So like I lost in your playing field, like I lost with your family. So that
You were
also
dead,
built,
and now you
yes,
in your career,
and I lost it.
Yes.
I really had that resentment towards him, and also the fact that he was just a male. Like I had that resentment just because he was male. So yeah, and then when I lost it, I remember when we were driving back home. So I sat, everybody got into the front, and I said I want to lay at the back in the boot. And I was laying and I was crying.
Now let's just correct. Not just really a boot. Is it a station wagon type of car, or literally a boot?
Yeah,
No,
it does.
It's like an SUV.
Yeah.
Yes. I just want to make sure. Because
it was a 7-seater, so the
No,
back
yeah.
of the boot. I was laying, but it was still open. I could get in, but I was laying at the back because I didn't want to be surrounded by my family, and so I was like
So
literally crying all the way.
Did you sense rejection?
Yes, definitely. I felt not just from society in such a way that it's like, why do you reject me? Because I did nothing wrong. So I guess the only crime that I committed here is the fact that I'm female. And then also rejection from my family, because some part of my family were rejoicing, and some people were saying that I lied, and others said I deserved it. So it was like, how can you do that when I'm broken? Like, why would I lie about such a thing? Why would I make something up like this? And for a long time, I even had resentment towards my grandmother, because it was like, okay, I know that it's a difficult position to find herself in, because she loves both her grandchildren, and obviously she can't choose sides. But for me, it was like, you're a woman, you're supposed to know the pain that I'm feeling. So I felt rejected from that as well. And even with, like with my extended family also. So I'm from that point on, like I wasn't connected to them. I avoided them. I think a lot of them I only saw again afterwards when we laid my granny to rest. So there was that void and that emptiness where prior to the rape, we would always come together Christmas time. Then we knew, okay, we're going to my granny, and we come together as a family and celebrate. And then from that point in time, everything just changed. So it was like almost like I lost my identity also, because that is what I knew how we were, and then things just
And was probably
changed.
also carrying guilt, thinking that I'm the cause of this.
Yes, because that's what some people also said, like, the family is different and it's because of you. So it was like carrying all of that. You have to carry your own hurt, you have to carry the opinions of others all on your shoulders, and it just got too much to bear, to the point where my suicidal attempts really just spiked, and it increased, because just after my matric year, my dad bought me my first car, and a few months later, I remember I was at a party, and at this party, like, everybody was dancing, and I was sitting there thinking, I was literally planning. I'm thinking, okay, when I go home, I'm going to drop you, and I'm going to drop you, and I'm going to drop you, and then I'm going to go to this specific street, and I'm going to drive up. And then that's what I did. So I dropped everyone. And then the one guy was like, no, come, I drive. And I'm like, no, I have to drop you. And then when I dropped him and then I drove up the main road, it was like the devil kept telling me that you're not worthy, you're not worthy, or you're just a mistake, everybody will be better off without you. And I believed what the enemy was telling me, and I took my car, it was a Golf, and I drove straight into the robot. And I was hoping that, okay, if I hit into the robot, I'm going to be dead. And then instead I woke up and I was like in so much pain, and I was like, shucks. why didn't I die?
Wow.
So like for me, I literally, it wasn't just, they say sometimes like some people will maybe try and take tablets or something because, maybe they wanted attention. But for me, it wasn't like attention. Like for me, it was like, I want to die. Like this is over. Like I'm finished. And yeah, so there was that. I remember also one day also.
So did you end up in hospital with it, accident?
Yes, I ended up in hospital with that. The car was like written off. It was like finished.
That was one of
And
the
then
attempts. Were there any other?
Yes, there was countless others. There was one major one where I remember. Fast forward, so I got involved with a guy that that's my son's father. So he introduced me like to drugs because he was on drugs and he would sell as well. So at the time after I've given birth to my son and we broke up, and for me that was like that rejection as well, and I was so broken that even though I was in an abusive relationship, I still wanted to be with him because it was almost like he protected me, but then he also hurt me. So I was broken, he was broken.
Sure.
So it was a hot mess. But on that particular time, I remember we broke up, and how I found out that he moved on with somebody else was I saw on WhatsApp. It was that time when it was still BBM and WhatsApp was still new. So then I saw him that he was like in bed with another woman, and I was broken. And then I decided that I was going to take 70 tablets. And because of what I learned in one of my lectures in psychology, one of the lecturers actually mentioned which tablet. I won't mention it now, but there was a tablet that is really strong that you can drink, and then that one is like guaranteed that it will really mess you up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take 70 of this because I really want to die. And I drank that, and it actually messed my insides up to a point where my throat on the inside really burnt.
Were you at home that time? Where did you?
I was actually at his workplace in. I forgot the area.
You don't have to go
So
there.
yeah, so I was standing in front of his workplace, and really, because I was running after this guy. Like that's how pathetic I was. And I drank all of these tablets in the car. And at that point in time, my dad also tracked me. So he saw that my car was sitting there, and they called the ambulance and they rushed me to hospital. And so I was there for a few days. But they didn't detect that I had damaged my throat inside.
Wow.
So when I came back home, I kept telling my mother, my throat, there's something wrong with my throat. Like it was really painful. And then I went back to hospital and I went for an operation. And they took out my tonsils, thinking that it's my tonsils. But then a few days after that, I started bleeding again. And I told my mother that, there's blood coming out of my mouth. And then I started just getting very, very, very weak. And then we went back to Garden City, and we went back to the ENT. And I told her, look, I want to quickly go to the bathroom because I just something doesn't feel right. And I remember going into the bathroom, and I was sitting on the floor next to the toilet, and I just felt like life was draining out of me. And then the doctor called me to go into his consultation room, and he asked me to open up my mouth, because then he examined to see where was the bleeding coming from. And as he put the injection in and took it out, I vomited buckets and buckets full of blood. And it was lumps of big chunks of blood that was just coming out. And I remember seeing him running out, and then he called my mom, and as he called my mom and he spoke to her, and he said, call the family because I don't think she's going to make it.
Wow.
And that was hectic for me, because then I heard it, and I don't think he realized that I heard it, and I just felt really weak. And then when they moved me into the ward, they put me in the pediatric ward. So I was 22 at the time, but I looked like a small child because I was that thin and I was that weak. And from there, when they realized that how old I was, they moved me then into the normal ward.
Sure.
And then they prepared me, and I remember seeing, and as they pushed me into the surgery, I remember seeing my mother's face, and my mother was extremely tired, and I could see that hopeless look on her face. And I told myself in that moment that I'm not going to try and kill myself again.
Wow.
Because just the look my mother's look alone it really affected me, thinking that, I'm putting my mother through all of the stress. And as the door closed, like that was the last thing I could see of my mother, and I could see the door closing, and I was blank. And then I woke up after the surgery back in the ward, and I was in so much pain. And that's when I said, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. But then I still had in the back of my mind, okay, instead of killing myself with all these pills and smashing cars into robots and all of that, I'm rather gonna kill myself through living a reckless lifestyle. And that's what I chose to do instead. And then I was really I was out partying, I was out sleeping around, I was just a hot mess, to a point where I could see that it was really tearing my family apart. But I was so selfish, because I just thought of myself and my own pain, that I didn't realize that my actions was causing pain to them as well. But when you're in that depressed state, you don't think about the next person. All you think about is you, because it's almost like this pride falls upon you, and it's like, it's just me. I'm in pain, and you don't understand. And that was a lot of the times, that was what they would tell my parents, you don't understand what I'm going through. You weren't raped, you don't know. But they're experiencing it with me, because I'm their child, so they see how it's affecting me, and it's affecting them in the same way. And it actually got to a point where I remember one time we went to a psychologist, and I was very arrogant, and I said and the lady was trying to speak to me, and I was like, you know what, I don't need your services. My mother actually needs you more. She's more depressed than I am. And I walked out. But it's just, you don't see all of these things when you're depressed, because it's you just think of yourself. And that's
just on that note, I noticed you make a few notes there. Is there something you want to ask based on that? Because I tell you, I don't know about Leandra, this is so hectic. I'm kind of crying. It's like, oh my God. This story, I'm not sure which angle I'm coming from a dad's angle, if I'm coming from just this deep story and the pain that goes with it. Because you know what's going through my mind? The years of pain. You know what? You first experienced it all by yourself. Then you shared it and you thought, oh, it's going to be over. And then one thing after the other, and then you feel less a person, and you feel like, I just want to give up, and you want to destroy yourself, kill yourself. But what you don't know, you're pulling the whole family with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just that's what statistics shows, that, depression affects the entire family and the repercussions of it. If it's going to be a substance abuse, if it's going to be getting involved, on attempts of suicide, it affects the entire family. The note that I made was, there's something that you mentioned earlier, the imaginary board. My question is, was the imaginary board, the cry for help, still there throughout all this process? Right? And did anybody ever address that imaginary board that you were putting out?
I think, how can I put it? My parents, if I have to be honest, they did try. But I still felt like something was missing. There were people that would come and speak, but they just didn't hit the nail on the head. They weren't filling that void that I actually had. I was yearning for something, but people couldn't give
Did
me
you know
what
yourself?
I was yearning
Did you
for.
know yourself, or was it just this hole in your heart that you don't know how to fill?
There was just this emptiness that I had within me. It's almost like you could speak, and I was in fact, I was very manipulative, if I have to be quite honest, to a point where I would know that my parents are really trying, and they would say, okay, no, let this person come speak to me, and I would be like, yes, and I'll be in tune, and I'd listen, knowing also that, okay, if I listen to you, I'm gonna get what I want from my parents. So it was almost like a manipulative strategy
thing, yeah.
also. But in a sense, though, I would listen, but they weren't giving me what I really desired, because there was this desire within me, and that desire was love that I really, 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 really wanted. But I couldn't get it.
What was your expectation? If you say that desire was love, what was your expectation?
for me, okay, I think a lot of people would say to me that, you know, you've been raped and it happened so long ago. Like, you should be fine now. You know, they would just tell me, "Ah, you were a survivor," but they wouldn't really tap into that deep pain. So I could never relate to anyone in a sense where I felt like they were coming with textbook knowledge and not coming from a place of experience. They're not coming from a place of authenticity, that realness that I really wanted to connect with.
They just doing their job.
Yeah, it's like, let me just encourage you and walk on. But I never really...
In any case, you're not my daughter. Let me just get done.
Yeah.
And go. You know what? This is most probably off subject. But, you know, I experienced it differently. Not in my personal life, but most probably on a different platform. I'm in ministry for many years. But only when I buried both my parents, I could grasp an understanding of death and what it's all about. And there are times, because now I was on the other side of the table. Now my mom passed and my dad passed. But you know what? All the words didn't count.
Yes.
And then 2 or 3 people will come and just sit there in a room and say nothing. And I could sense more love in that sitting, if you understand what I'm saying. There's something that you cannot explain it, but there's a deepness about it.
Yes.
And here you come, people say, and others pray long prayers, and others encourage you, but really it doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
I've learned out of that, and now when I get to places, and I will be with somebody, and people will thought, "Are you not gonna say?" Then I say, "No, I just hug you, and I just say, stay calm. I love you, I appreciate you," and I would sit there and wait for an hour in that room and leave.
Yes.
It's like, do you know that was so deep for that people?
Yes.
Then the person that comes here and laugh. Do you know sometimes in that people come? I don't say everybody must be the same, but they come and have the little cookies and the tea and they laugh when there's death. I guess that's the closest I could get to what you wanted.
Yes.
It's like there's a deepness that you cannot explain. Literally, there's no cross T's and dots in this whole thing. It's just like, I can't explain it, but it's deep.
Yes.
And you were needed just that.
Yes.
If you mentioned that the doctors, the experience with the doctor, right? The fact that you heard that you were going to die, right? Versus you trying to kill yourself every time, which was almost a traumatic, or let me say that was an encounter. Just walk us through that, because you were lying there, vomiting blood, but now for the first time you hear.
It's almost what you say, Roden. It's almost, here's the reality. Do you want it?
Yeah. Do you want it?
It's here now.
It's here now.
We're going to call the family, and it's here now. So I guess that's what you ask, right?
That's
I
what
think there was if I have to be honest, there was a part of me that was thinking like, what now? Like, I'm fearful, like, is this really happening? Like, for me, I think, I don't know, sometimes if you really wish that, it would be instant, because then there's no room for improvement, kind of a thing, for you to get out of that situation. But for me at that time, it was like that pain and the suffering. It was like, yeah, no, this is real, like that pain. But then you're also hoping, like, I don't want to go, especially after seeing my mother. And it was like that hope that I don't want to go, because I want to actually make things better for my mother.
That's why I'm saying that encounter was very critical.
That was an encounter.
I think that's when it really opened up my eyes.
That was an encounter. That was literally rock bottom.
Yes.
Well, we are busy with the inside show here. I've got a wonderful lady here. We've got a book out, and she's sharing our story with me here today. I'm so glad. I can imagine the people on the other side. I say, allow her now to continue with the story. You want to know where's the story. So take us now away from that hospital room. Now you look at your mother from that point, and then you decided, okay, I'm going to do a reckless life. I don't care who's saying what. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And then fast forward from that point now, how did this whole thing end? I mean, was there more suicidals? Was it just that reckless life? Pick it up from there and then continue with the story.
So, I was doing my 3rd year at University of Johannesburg. So I remember one day just sitting in the car, And so I used to smoke the sable. So I actually was bunking class to sit and smoke. And then when I looked at myself in the what's that flip
Rear view mirror.
The rear,
Oh,
rear
the-
view,
the-
that,
the-
yeah,
okay,
that
the
flip
flap,
one.
yeah.
So I looked at myself and I realized that I don't recognize myself. Like, who is this girl? Because that wasn't me. Like, I would never bunk class before. I would never do all of this. And I didn't recognize myself. And it was from that time where I think I started wrestling with God, because prior to then I was actually an atheist. Like, I did not believe in God. For me, it was like, how can there be a God? And things like rape happen. So I didn't want to hear about this God. So I looked at myself and I realized that I don't know this person anymore, and I don't know where I could go to from here, because I tried killing myself. I tried all these reckless things, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't giving me that instant gratification that it did before. You know, like when you would smoke and then you'd like have that instant gratification and you're hype and you're happy. But I got to a point where it was like I didn't enjoy doing what I was doing anymore. And then I remember, like, it was like God, now knowing that it's the Holy Spirit, but that time it was like God was like telling me, go to church, give Jesus a try. And I was sitting and I was like, I like don't believe in this God that people say, you know, will love you, because how can he doesn't love me, because he put me through all of this. And then I remember it was the 19th of August 2014. It was a Tuesday, and I was supposed to go to class, and I was like, okay, let me go. And then I drove to Crystal Church, and just before you turn left to come in, I stopped there at the road, and I was like, okay, am I gonna go? Am I not gonna go? Like what? I was like doing like in my mind, and eventually I said, okay, you know what? Let me just go. And I came to the reception, and I asked, and I said, look, I want to give my heart to Christ. Who can I speak to? And they called down Pastor Neil at the time, and he came and he prayed for me, and I was like, okay. Then I felt like a sigh of relief. I was like, okay, now what? And I remember going straight to an old lady. She was the one that would always come and like speak to me about Jesus. Jeanette Versage, I call her Oma Net. So I went to her and I said to her, you know what, Oma Net, I went to church now, and I said, you know what, let me give my heart to Jesus. I want to give this thing a try that you told me about. And I remember, and I said to her, but please don't tell my mother and my father. Like, it must just be a secret between you and I, because I want to see if it works. If it works, like, I want them to see a change in me first. And then I'll say, look, you know, this is what I did. But I wanted it to be like private. But not her. Like, she went to go tell my mother and my father. And then I was like,
She was
okay.
excited.
Yeah, so then it was like, okay, then I was thankful, because now I had people that would hold me accountable, you know, that was there like to surround me and to kind of teach me and guide me and stuff like that. So so that's where I then started my journey on you know, getting to know Christ. I started coming, because my brother used to go, went to the youth group, the factory, and then he invited me one Friday, and he's like, okay, come. And then I came with him, and then I started getting plugged in and stuff like that. So that's really where my journey with Christ, you know, started kicking off.
At the factory.
At the factory, yes. Yeah. And then it was
Give it up for the factory.
So it was exciting for me at the time to see like guys my age, you know, just worshiping God and like living a good life, and that is ultimately what I desired also. And I must say, I felt a bit out of place in the beginning, because I felt ashamed of where like my history and my background, because it was like, you know, I don't want people to really get to know me and see the ugly side of me. I just want to portray this new version of me. So yeah, but what's nice was that they accepted me for who I was. So that's what I longed for as well. You know, there's just that acceptance and that to accept me for who I am. And funny enough, that's also what I seeked. I wanted that acceptance because of the rejection that I felt from my family. I wanted that acceptance, and I was seeking it from all the wrong places. So I found it, and it was in a good, healthy environment. So that was nice.
The first time when I really picked you up on your story was, I think Xavier asked you to do a play.
Yes.
On your story.
Yes.
And they did a good play on that story. I think it played on TV.
Yes.
Didn't it play on TV on One Gospel?
Yes.
Yeah, what a storyline.
Yes.
And Leandra, who's our producer, were involved with that storyline, and they played that thing. I tell you, we were in tears that night.
No, definitely.
I tell you, my God, it's like similar to what's happening in the studio. It's like, the story is so deep, and I know it's helping people out there. I tell you, it's helping. It will cement so many things. And you're a teacher now, and for you still to take the podium and to take the mic and to sit here and podcast and share your story, that must be deep. In a sense that you want to help somebody out there that is struggling, and somebody that think that there's no hope. And now I was trying to count 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 6 years down the line. Or is it 7? Something like 6 years down the line. And here you are. You're a smart girl. You're back on track. And it doesn't mean that every day is a good day. Just like all of us. By the way. I never had a rape experience, but let me give you the surety. Every day is not a good day. So sometimes the devil have a tendency to let you think that you're unique in your province. But everybody experiences something different. So I want to know the triggers. Okay. Certain things that not necessarily drug addiction triggers, but that deep depression. Because let's be honest, the root cause of this whole thing was that rape.
Yes.
And from there it spiraled off to suicidal and drugs, suicide tendency and drugs, and then eventually a reckless lifestyle. Yes. And then bottom drop, what did you call it? Rock bottom. Yeah. I didn't want to use the word rock because it sounds like drugs. Rock bottom. So you hit rock bottom.
Yes.
Yeah. And then your life turned around one day in a car park at Varsity. Third year, look in a mirror and look at yourself. Almost the same look as what your mother gave you. You gave that look to yourself.
Yes.
It's like
that hopeless look.
Is like, is this me? Is it really what I want? And from that car park to a receptionist area of a church, and you ask for somebody and they pray, and you went to an old lady and you confess, and she phoned a family, and voila, the turnaround. Now, are there days that want to trigger you back into a deep form of depression?
Yes.
Is there, and what is those things that triggers? Because I need to help somebody out there that's struggling to stay above. So what will those things be, if you may?
I think it's important to realize, Rev, that Dr. Carl, that when you give your heart to Christ, it doesn't mean that the devil is going to leave you now. I think now he is really after you because he doesn't want you to do God's will. So for me, I realized now, like looking back to the 6 years that I have been saved, the devil has been after me in a sense where he knows that I've had this depression, and it's something that's a challenge for me. So he'll constantly put things in my place, and I've picked up that a lot of the times my depression stems from unmet expectations. In a point where, if I can briefly share, and I've noticed that this is actually a pattern in my personal life where, at the time when I was with my son's with my son's dad, I was engaged at that time, and when I had this in my mind that, look, I was going to be married and so forth, and things were going to be perfect, we were going to be this happy family, and then that was taken away from me, and that was also that added to my depression. And then now even, I was also previously engaged, and when that
within
was
the
also
6 years,
within the 6 years,
now you're clean, you're out,
clean.
You're not reckless,
Yes.
you serve the Lord.
I serve the Lord,
and the same
everything.
demon.
The same demon comes
The
and knocks
same
on my
demon.
door.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, fine. I was also engaged, and then that was taken away from me. And there I also had this expectation, whereas and then that expectation wasn't met, and then I slipped into a depression.
Yeah.
But now the thing that I realized was then back then, to deal with that depression, I looked for outlets in like drugs, like sex, and like alcohol. But now with this time, I had tools. I had tools to actually overcome that unmet expectation. And instead of running to the things of the world, I ran to Christ, because that was like where I knew, okay, this is how I need to deal with it. And I think God put it in such a way that I see it almost as a test to see how far have you grown, how is your maturity, where are you now, are you really able to overcome that depression, and also do you have the tools, to speak to someone knowing that you have that experience? Because previously, yes, I was depressed previously, but those were the things that I ran to. But now, being saved, I found myself in that depressed state. But this is what I did, and that is what worked. So now I can actually say, look, that's what I did then. That didn't work. This is what I did now, and this actually works.
Hey, I'm getting so excited now. Isn't that beautiful?
That's beautiful. As a matter of fact, in the words of Theolyn Francis, right, who says the following: I was comforted with knowing that all I needed to do was surrender and avail myself to Him, and He'll do the rest.
Yes. Yes.
You're quoting from a book now.
No, I'm quoting from her devotional on getting healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, where do you get that devotional?
That's from a website where she did a devotional.
So you're running a website.
Yes. Yes.
Is it like on a daily basis? Do you, or just whenever you have time, you go there?
So yeah, it's whenever I have time, and spirit led, then I will.
You'll
do
put something
that,
there.
yes.
Somebody on my staff was telling me that I can't remember. I think it was Leandra. Was telling me that at one point you had the characters of the Bible, and you will draw parallels, like almost real life issues.
Yes.
Out of a character like Esther, and you have a real life
Yes.
issue like Naomi. You have a real life issue, and man, you are a survivor. The girl, you're a survivor. You know what I really admired? It's like, to see somebody not falling back, and that's exactly what darkness will do. Darkness will let you fall back on your past, and say, okay, that's how you dealt with it then. Just do the same.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
leave everything and just go back and do what you do. It worked for you. But this time you were standing your grounds and you were pushing forward. So what are you saying, telling somebody out there that's going through triggers, like triggers to push them back into depression? What will you say to that person?
So I just wanna point out that it's important to understand what depression is, because I think sometimes people loosely just throw the term depression around when they say, I'm depressed.
I'm depressed, yeah.
They often confuse depression with sadness. Sometimes you can experience something where you then overcome with this sadness. Whereas depression, you experience that sadness or that despair or that sorrow for minimum of at least 3 weeks, and then you experience it ongoing. So when you're experiencing depression, it's important to realize also to figure out where the root is, which is like your triggers. So like when I say unmet expectations, I use that term because it's general. Some people might be depressed because if we look at COVID also, like people lost their jobs. So because of the fact that they lost jobs, they had an expectation for the year coming out that I'd have an income. Now that income is taken away, so now they're feeling that depressed. Or when you lose a family member, you had an expectation that you were still going to be with that person, and then they are taken away. So that's why I say, I just use the term unmet expectation as a trigger. So I lost my train of thought now for a moment.
Okay, you'll get to it because you shared a lot. I tell you shared a lot. You went through a whole lot of things in your life, and there are certain things that triggers people. I think what you really wanted to get to is that there's not just one thing that will trigger you down. There's multiple things. For others, you will say it could be the COVID and expectation, your vision, your objectives. In my personal life, I had to deal with it myself. on a personal daily basis about certain things that's happening, because I was expecting to be at a specific point now in 2020.
Yes.
And now it seems like your line is back. Is it back?
No, yeah. No.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, continue
Yeah.
then.
So now in the middle of 2020, then you realize, oh my God, you're not going to reach target. You're not going to, but then you recoup. And one of the things that I decided early is to get into books, to write books, and that's all the insights books that you see. I decided to start a studio, for that matter, the Inside Studio, and I tried. For me, instead of going back in the trigger, I tried from my side to have a different approach, so that I have kind of a milestone within darkness. Does it make sense? So you place yourself some target, a different target. And what the devil or darkness try to do, you reverse.
Yes.
And that's exactly the point on that. So I know there's some people out there, there's different things that triggers you, and there's different things that want you to bring you down. But I just don't want you to give up. And if you listen to this beautiful young lady here, that you went to a hard place. I tell you, I don't know if anyone your age to experience all their things and survive and still come here and sit here and share your story with us here today. Man, so sad to say that we are at the end of our show, close to. Before I give you final remarks, I just want to hear from Rodenbora. Is there anything that you would like to ask this wonderful girl here?
No, I don't want to ask anything more, else we're going to do another hour show.
Yeah.
Right, but really, Theolyn, you are so admirable. It's such a pleasure working with you. And you know what, I can just, I've got a daughter. And, by the grace of God, she can even learn from you. Because I don't know. That is why I hammered on that imaginary board. How many people are walking around here with an imaginary board, crying out for help, right? And they're not necessarily getting the outlet or the answer to their question, that cry for help.
The root might not be abuse.
It might not.
It could be anything else.
It could be anything
just
else.
a huge disappointment by you just failed high school or your matric year.
Or a failed expectation, like
failed
you said.
expectation, That is deep. Because if you consider that can push people into depression, because there's always a root for depression. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's financial, if it's emotional, if it's relational, if it's economical, it doesn't matter what it is. There's always a root for depression, even your health. Because you could be high in spirit. I know of somebody, sadly last night, somebody was sharing with me, a wonderful person which is on a stage 4 cancer, stomach cancer. And that triggered something with me. Do you know what that triggered? My mom died of stomach cancer. Now, I was there for a moment while they were sharing this. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I went into somewhere into a dark place, and I went to kind of pull myself out there and realize this person needs you now. There's no need for you to pull back now. Just address the issue. So there's a lot of pain in this world, and there's a lot of people that's going through hardship and misery and sorrow. But there's hope. Yes. And your story is such a beautiful story. And your book, if people could get a book, where would they get the book if they need a book? Are you out of print? You didn't. When last did you do the book? Because you're not promoting it anymore. But
No.
people need it. People need it. We should look into that again. So let me not put you on the spot now again. Let's go to your website, and you'll surprise us one day on your website. How's that? Yeah. Closing remarks from you to the listeners out there. So to somebody, a young, beautiful young man or young girl that's really going through a tough time, doesn't matter what it is, what will you tell that person?
I think I firstly want to tell them that they're not alone, because that's what depression tends to make you feel, like you're isolated, you're alone. So I want to tell them that they're not alone, and that you should go and seek help. Find at least one person that you're able to trust, able to speak to, because there's a lot of healing that comes from speaking. There's a lot of healing that comes from also trusting. Find that one person that you can trust, and also wherever you find yourself in, whether you're in Johannesburg or in the USA or Kenya, wherever, find yourself a a safety group, whether it's a church, whether it's a support group. Find that group where you can actually go and share, where you can go and find that hope, where you can go and find that relief from what you are going through. Because I'm a believer, I always say that Jesus is always the answer. So go and get plugged in. There's a so it's on my phone. I don't know where's my phone, but there's something where the Bible actually says, be anxious for nothing but pray about everything. And for me, that I found so profound, that in our moments of feeling anxious, in our moments of feeling weak, the Bible is asking us to pray. And what is pray? It's to talk. So find yourself in a place where you are able to talk to God, so that you can release that anxiety, release that depression that you are going through, that you are facing. But my biggest thing is to talk about it, because when you are depressed, you just want to bottle everything up and thinking, okay, sometimes I don't want to burden you because you're going through your own things. But really, the biggest way, or the biggest thing to overcome depression is to really to talk, to let it out. And why not just talk to God for free instead of paying a psychologist, but so talk and really trust that God will carry you. It's not something that's lighthearted. I don't want to just laugh about it, because depression is real. Some people die from it. So it's not something lighthearted. But all I can say is talk and trust God. Pray, because that's what I did, and it worked for me. So that's the advice I can give.
That was our show today on the Inside Show, entitled "Depression is Real, Deliverance is Possible," with a wonderful lady here, Theolyn Francis. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Thank you so much for sharing your heartfelt story. You had me in tears here. I even had to get some tissues here. I tell you're a brave woman. Thank you so much, Rosenbora, for sharing. Well, for everybody out there, I want you, please, if you don't mind, if you know of somebody that's going through depression one way or the other, specifically young people and millennials that think that, there's no hope and there's no future, I want you, please, if you don't mind, just share this link, ask them to watch it on YouTube. And from my side, the Inside Show is signing out. I love you. God loves you best. And take care and have a super wonderful day. Take care. Good morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me.
Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence.